What an amazing woman Dr. Heather Stone is. So she really gives back to women, helping them feel their absolute best through masterminds. She has a Facebook page that you'll want to check out. And then she talks about like getting to the underlying root and cause of what we experience as women when we're in our younger ages, mid ages, and then getting through menopause and everything like that. So take a listen, especially if you struggle with any sort of autoimmune disease or fatigue, brain fog, things along those lines. Take a listen and figure out how you can optimize your health and make yourself a priority. Hello, fellow mompreneurs. Welcome to the Real Moms Podcast, the go-to space for resilient entrepreneurs who are striving for abundant living. I'm your host, Shae Spitz, a mompreneur and a realtor here in Columbus, Nebraska. Are you a mom juggling the hustle of entrepreneurship, family life, and personal growth? Well, you're in the right place. On this podcast, we dive deep into the real, unfiltered stories of incredible women who are navigating the journey of mompreneurship. We'll celebrate the victories, share practical insights, and acknowledge that it's okay to face challenges along the way. Success isn't about the destination. It's about the journey and the growth we experience as we balance our careers and the chaos of family life. Whether you're a seasoned mompreneur or just starting on this exciting path, join me and our amazing guests as we explore what it truly means to be a resilient entrepreneur striving for abundant living. Get ready for real, raw, and remarkable conversations that will inspire and uplift you. Because here at the Real Moms Podcast, we believe in the power of community, authenticity, and the strength that comes from embracing the journey together. So grab your coffee, find a cozy spot, and let's dive into the world of mompreneurship. This is the Real Moms Podcast, where we celebrate the hustle, honor the struggle, and thrive as resilient entrepreneurs living abundantly. Welcome to another episode of Real Moms Podcast. I like to start every podcast off with a motivational quote, and today's quote is, as long as we use familiar feelings as a barometer, as feedback on our effort to change, we'll always talk ourselves out of new possibilities. And that is by Dr. Joe Dispenza. So today I have Dr. Heather Stone, DC. She is one of the top functional medicine practitioners in the world. She has over 20 years of clinical experience in private practice. During that time, she has successfully helped thousands of women overcome the symptoms of hypothyroidism and Hashimoto's. Her thyroid transformation blueprint has been used by hundreds of doctors and thus has helped countless women return to happy, healthy, and lean. Her mission is to change the face of healthcare through her private practice, books, master classes, webinars, education programs, and retreats on her ranch in Texas. So Dr. Heather Stone, thank you so much for being here. You obviously have done so much throughout your entire life. Where and how did that all get started?
Well, it all got started with my own personal journey. For me, I was in college and I was having all of these symptoms where I couldn't lose weight. I was really tired, brain fog. My menstrual cycles were a mess, or I should say non-existent. So I go to the best OB-GYN in Austin at the time, and I go in and I was in a pre-med. And this was before Dr. Google. So I was kind of researching like, what in the world are these symptoms and where do they come from? And so I asked the doctor, I'm like, maybe I have hypothyroid. Could you check me for hypothyroid? And he's like, sure. It sounds like, you have all the classic symptoms. So he's like, I'll draw your blood and come back in a couple weeks. So I go back in a couple weeks for the test results. And he's like, well, there's nothing wrong with your thyroid. And, I think you don't have a menstrual cycle because you exercise too much. And then as he was on his way out the door, he was like, oh, by the way, you're probably going to have infertility. So when you're ready to have kids, just come back and we'll put you through fertility treatment. And I was like, what just happened? So I'm grateful for that opportunity or that experience, because at that moment, when he told me that I didn't have a menstrual cycle because I exercised too much, I knew that that wasn't true, because I knew that women lose their menstrual cycle when they exercise a lot because their body fat goes down to like less than 10%. I was literally 50 pounds overweight. So right. I was like, okay, that is not what is true. And so the next things that came out of his mouth, like, you're going to have fertility issues, I thought that isn't true either. And then it was like, that isn't going to be my life. And so I have to figure this out, because I'm not going to take that as an answer or a solution, because it really wasn't a solution.
Hmm.
And so as I went on this journey and really figured it out, I mean, it certainly took many years for me to do so. And then I was like, oh my gosh, there are millions of women who are dealing and struggling with these symptoms. And there are so many women who actually have low thyroid. And so for me, it just became, a passion. It became a mission to really help women understand that they're not stuck with these symptoms, that their bodies can actually heal, and they don't have to live with these symptoms despite what they might be told.
Right. Wow. So that is quite the journey. So did you ever have any issues with infertility then?
So no, I didn't. So, well, I will say I did have an ectopic pregnancy. So it wasn't necessarily an issue getting pregnant. So I did have an ectopic pregnancy early on. But after that, I had two healthy boys, all naturally, no fertility treatments. And they're both, now in college. Well, one's in college and one's a senior in high school. So, I want people to understand that your body is always working towards survival. And when we have a fertility issue, most of the time it's not a structural issue. I will say this, with my first son, I was going to have him at home. I was really wanting a home birth, and I was in labor for 5 days. So at 5 days, my husband was like, Heather, all right, we're done. You have to go to the hospital. And we were constantly monitoring the heart rate and making sure the baby wasn't in distress, but I just wasn't dilating.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, I'm done also. I don't have any more energy to keep doing this because as most of you all know, when you're in labor, you don't really sleep.
No,
So
it's
I
exhausting.
went to the hospital, ended up with a C-section, and the doctor told me that the reason that you are having this issue is because your pelvis is too small. And I was like, now that cannot be true. I am not that small. I know many other smaller women than me who give birth, and it's not because they have a small pelvis. I mean, like I was a size 4. Like it's not really that small. You would think of like little Chinese women.
Yeah,
They're having
right.
babies. And
Yes.
so with my next one, I went into a lot of therapy, not therapy necessarily, but dealing with a lot of emotions and emotional states. And, because it was going so long, my dad was all nervous and his energy was all there, whenever I was trying to have that home birth. So the next one, I'm like, okay, parents, I'm going to tell you once the baby's born, and then you can start driving up.
Yeah.
And then I did a lot of emotional work and making sure that I wasn't blocking my body from actually dilating. And so with my second one, I talked my midwife into making sure that it was fine for me to do what's called a VBAC, so a vaginal birth after cesarean. And she's like, okay, I know that you know kind of what you're doing and you're taking care of yourself, but she's like, I just want you to have a good relationship with an OB-GYN in case we have to call them. And I'm like, okay, fair enough. So the next one came just fine, had a baby boy at home, healthy within the normal time frame.
Oh my.
So, it's pretty amazing to me. And I'm always amazed, almost on a daily basis, at how amazing our bodies are. That our bodies are made to heal and they are made to function optimally. But sometimes there's underlying imbalances that might get in the way or that your body might need a little bit of help overcoming. And our emotional state and the way that we think and some false beliefs also have a huge impact in the way that our body is able to express health.
Yes, I absolutely agree. And I think that we underestimate the power of our own mind. Um,
Yeah.
it is quite amazing at how powerful our mind is because you had made the comment like you didn't want to put your own body and your own self into distress just by the way we think. And then you said that your dad had that energy. Our bodies feed off of that
Yeah.
energy. And men are not as in tune with their bodies as I think
Yeah.
women are. Because
And if y'all knew my dad, he's like so anxious. Like he didn't want me to be at home anyway. And like he's just so like I didn't want to make a noise so that he heard. Like there was too many things happening.
yeah,
And he was trying to like be gone, like going to Home Depot for 12 hours a day. And so it just the whole thing wasn't very conducive for me to be in my own relaxed, amazing, amazing state to have this
Yes.
baby at home.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, kind of going back to like the power of your own mind is what you tell yourself is your reality. You know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
when you were surrounded by high energy and in kind of a negative way, like you kind of felt that for 5 days, and that's exhausting. Whereas if
Yep.
you're maybe home by yourself with your husband, maybe it wouldn't have gone that way. But our mind controls our bodies so much more than
Yeah.
we ever realize, but physically too. Like you can cause yourself to go into anxiety and get sweaty and all of that just by the things you think and say and do and all of that, you know?
Yeah, it is pretty amazing because I work with a lot of women. And when you're trying to handle underlying autoimmunity or a lot of symptoms that we start to deal with, like low energy, hair falling out, weight gain, you have to think about and understand what kind of stress levels your body is under.
Hmm.
And, when we are in a state of sympathetic overdrive, which is in fight or flight, like our body is always ready to run, fight, or hide,
Hmm.
it isn't safe to get pregnant. It isn't safe to sleep. The body stops digestion, so we start to get constipated. And so when we are in that state, we're taking from our reserves and the body is on straight survival. And it is meant to be there in short spurts. Like our body is fine handling that, but then getting back into parasympathetic. But what happens is we stay in this state of fight or flight. And what's interesting? We get addicted to those hormones. And
Hmm.
when we get out of that state, it feels weird. It doesn't feel familiar. It feels like something is wrong. So, guess what we do? We start to think about thoughts that push us back into fight or flight because you can literally, by the thoughts that you think, you can actually create a complete chemical cascade of fight or flight. So, we can produce cortisol in a second by just one or two thoughts. It's like we have one thought and it'll lead to another thought and another thought. And
Yes.
then it's like, okay, I'm going to tell the body that we are in a state of stress. And so even if we don't have external stressors, because that feels weird and our body gets addicted to those hormones, we start to have this looping thoughts of stress. And so we start worrying about people. Patients will be like, oh, but I'm just a worrier. I'm like,
Yeah.
worrying does not help anything. And one of the things that I've worked on myself is like, okay, I'm worrying about this. I'm overanalyzing. I'm overthinking. Like, is there something I can do about this now? Is there like a path I can move? Is there a choice I can make? Is there some action I can take to help move this stress in the right direction? Or is it out of my is it out of my control? So do I just need to give it to God?
Yeah.
So usually I'm like, okay, I just need to give it to God. If I start perseverating on somebody else's problems, I'm like, did they ask for my help? No, they did not. Do they want my help? No. And
Yeah.
it's none of my business. So I'm like, I got a lot of things I can focus on in my business and stay out of their business. So I have also given like my mom and sister, if we start, worrying about or talking about someone to gently remind me and everybody else that it's none of our business. And so it's helped us stay on track and stay positive and get out of those stress hormones.
Yeah, and we also need to realize that for our own
Uh,
lives too. Like
yeah.
there's things, control the controllables, you know, and that holds true so much more than we think. You cannot control everything, and worrying about the things that you can't control is not going to do you any good, you know? So you can only control the controllables and let everything else go. Like you said, give it up to God. And I would say over the last since my mental breakdown that I had told you about earlier today, I truly believe that everything happens for a reason, and a setback
Mm-hmm.
is a setup for a comeback. And
Yep.
that setback needed to happen. I'm glad it happened. I would never want to live through it again. It was horrible, absolutely horrible. My poor husband, but my body was in like fight or flight
Mm-hmm.
24/7 for 4 weeks. Like I was just shaking. I was kind of eating, but not sleeping. And still to this day, don't really know why, but I know it needed to happen. And coming out of that was the best thing that has happened to me. And I've really learned from it and that experience. But your body and your mind
Yeah.
are created to keep you alive. And so it's set up
Yep,
to
exactly.
protect you, you know, where, but we have to also be able to recognize that, like, I'm not in immediate danger. Like, I don't need to like fight for this. And, but yeah, I started getting closer to God and really putting myself, you know, and just letting things go to faith and to God. And that has relieved so much of my stress. I'm like, okay, you know, like things happen. I'm still going to grind. I'm still going to work hard, but God ultimately does have this control and he's going to do the things that need to be done for my purpose in life.
Yep, exactly. I think it's important because for so many of us, what did the quote I saw yesterday? 73% of Americans are obese. And I think there was that was a new study that came out. And another quote that I heard was like 94% of Americans have a metabolic issue. And I think so many of us, the majority of us, are dealing with weight. And when we have a weight issue, we start beating ourselves up. And we start really thinking that our body is the enemy, that our body is not working for us. It's always working against us. But one of the things that I know, and I'm reminded of every single day, is that the body is always working towards survival. It's
Mhm.
always doing the thing that is the most pro survival for you, and it is protecting you. So if we could for a moment get out of hating our bodies and know that our body is really working for us, but there is something going on underneath the surface that maybe isn't apparent or that we can't see or that we don't know. That's where really digging in and diving in and understanding that when we do have symptoms, if we do have a weight issue, if we do have anything going on with our body, to know that it's just a symptom, and a symptom is a way that the body communicates with you that something is not right, that there is some kind of underlying imbalance that's going on that the body is having a hard time overcoming and it needs your help.
Mhm.
So looking at symptoms as blessings, right? And saying, okay, my body's trying to communicate with me. What is going on? And so, that's what I do with my patients is we do a lot of testing so that we can figure out where this issue is coming from. Like when somebody does have a weight issue, is it a toxic overload? Is it insulin resistance? Is it low thyroid and slowed metabolism? Is it underlying infections? So there's always a reason for why we have a symptom or why our body is trying to communicate with us, but you got to really figure out what's going on underneath the surface. But like we were talking about earlier, if we're constantly having thoughts of, I'm so fat and my body's not working, and why am I going through this? And why is it not cooperating with me? Then you just create more of the same instead of getting yourself into a space of, okay, it's communicating with me. I appreciate these symptoms. What do we need to do to figure out what's causing the symptoms? And then what is the path forward to create resolution?
Right. And I also kind of going back to, 20 years ago when you were told that you had these issues and you're like, no, that's not true. I think that people rely so heavily on doctors anymore that when a doctor tells them something, they're like, oh, I have this. Oh, I have that. And then they
Yep.
go down that rabbit hole. I have a friend of mine who has a lot of autoimmune issues and complications and has been really tired and been going back to the doctor more because, she just feels that there's not something right and she's getting to the age of menopause. Not there, not
Yep.
there, but I mean, I feel like
Yeah,
menopause
like
is a lot earlier.
perimenopause. Yep.
Yeah, but like I
Mm-hmm.
feel like menopause is a lot earlier now than it ever used to be, and it's probably because of the foods that we eat and whatever else. But I feel like they tell her, like she says, okay, well, I have, these symptoms going on, but she's on these meds. And the doctor's like, well, I think you have this now, and I think you have this. And they keep her going down this entire rabbit hole and putting her on more medications or encouraging her to, rather than trying to truly figure out the root cause. Like, I don't know. What do you do when I mean, do you see that a lot? Do you see women who keep going back for these different symptoms, and they're just being put on meds or more testing here? What would you recommend to somebody in that situation?
Yeah, so you're talking about someone who has autoimmunity, and most people who have low thyroid also have autoimmunity. And there's so many women, I'm sure many of your listeners have either autoimmunity or Hashimoto's, or they have some kind of low thyroid. But it's important to understand that your body is always trying to communicate with you. But we are taught, like when we have a symptom, go to the doctor, and the doctor is going to run labs and figure out what is going on and fix the cause of the symptom. But that isn't how our medical society is set up. So we see it's essentially a disease drug therapy model. So you go and they try to find and name the disease. Now, a lot of us, we go and there is no disease yet. We just have fatigue and we can't lose weight and we can't sleep and we've got anxiety and depression and brain fog. And they're like, nothing's wrong with you. Come back whenever it gets worse. And you're like, okay, thanks a lot. Or they'll tell you, you need to go eat less and exercise more. You're like, I've already been doing that, but thanks. So then, a couple years go by or months go by and you go back and they're like, oh, okay, now you have low thyroid. Here's your thyroid medication. But they're not looking for why do you have low thyroid? Why is the thyroid gland not functioning as well as it should? And there's like 20 different imbalances that could create this whole issue with low thyroid, but they're only looking for one. So they give you thyroid medication and they say everything's going to be fine. And almost never is everything fine. And it might be fine for a few months. And then all these symptoms start coming back, kind of probably what your friend was dealing with. And then she goes back to the doctor and she's like, okay, well, your thyroid numbers look good, but I still have anxiety and depression and I can't sleep. And they're like, oh, okay, well, here's an anti-anxiety med and here's an antidepressant and here's a sleeping pill and take those and you'll be fine. And those pills cause more symptoms. And it's like one drug after another. And I think, don't get me wrong, there is a time and place for medicine, and where medicine shines is in the emergency state. When our body is in emergency and it needs to be rescued, that is where traditional medicine really shines. But where it's failing is chronic degenerative diseases, which is what you're talking about, because none of these drugs are addressing the root cause of why you have that. None of these drugs are going to fix an underlying imbalance. Essentially, they're just shutting down a symptom, which is what your body is. It's almost like that check engine light that goes on in your car that we all hate, that I would love to just put a piece of tape over. And I'm like, dang it, this is not convenient for this dumb light to come on. But that's exactly like a symptom. And if you take a drug for, let's say, anxiety or depression, essentially you're just kind of putting a Band-Aid on it and not really understanding, what's going on at a root cause level. And because of that, the underlying imbalances that are causing that anxiety, depression, weight issue, anything, it's going to get bigger over time. And then it's going to show up with another symptom because your body is like, hey, girl, I am really struggling here. So I need you to help me with this underlying imbalance. And so there is another route to go, and there is other alternative solutions to really getting down to the root cause and not just trying to name the disease with a diagnosis and applying the appropriate medication, but really, how do we find where the imbalance is and then create balance back in the body, and then the symptoms go away, right? Like as soon as you fix the engine problem, whatever it was, then the light goes off, right? And that's exactly how our bodies work, instead of just kind of trying to cover it up.
Right. So what do you do? So instead of like just giving people more meds to mask the symptoms and getting to the root cause, when you do get to the root cause, what does that look like for a woman? I mean, do you put them on more meds? Is it more like supplements? Is it changing the diet? Because I think the hardest part with people is like, okay, well, I can change the diet temporarily. But if you're telling me I need to change this long term, like that sounds like it's going to be a struggle, because I think that kind of played into why I had that mental breakdown, is because I actually went off of my meds. I'm on a very low dose of Zoloft. And I
Yeah.
have been forever, like the lowest dose you can go. But I was like, nah, I don't need that. Like I'm just going to really eat clean and I'm going to eat exercise. And it worked great. And it worked fantastic when I was very consistent with what I was eating, exercising, eating clean, because I did 75 hard. And then I kind of fell back into my old ways. And I don't eat terrible, but I wasn't eating as great. So I think it was a combination of things. Is like I stopped being so consistent with my healthy lifestyle, that I think that was kind of part of it. And then I was like, holy shnikers, nope, I got to get back on these meds, because
Yeah.
clearly, I mean, that lifestyle that I was striving for wasn't sustainable for me at that time. So,
Yep.
what do you do for women in that case then? Like, I mean, are you putting more
Yeah,
miles on them
so
or what?
this is really important. So first of all, and this is goes along with the blueprint. This is kind of how we really should be handling our care and what really works. So first of all, you have to set goals. What are the goals that you're trying to achieve? And then you have to create the motivations behind those goals. And I will tell you, it is so important for women who, for all women, but I can relate to women entrepreneurs who are business owners and have kids and a family and all the things that we are dealing with. You have to keep your health as your number one priority. And it is really hard, but that is the best way to grow your business. And it's the best way to have great, meaningful relationships with your husband, your children, your family, is if you are in good health. Does it take extra time? Yes. Does it make you have to make certain decisions that are difficult? Absolutely. But whatever your priorities are, so my priorities are very clear. Like I have a mission to change the face of healthcare, and I love what I do, and I work a lot. But in order for me to sustain that and to be here for my kids and my patients and grow my business, my health has to be my number one priority. Because if I'm tired, depressed, anxious, all of those things, none of that works. I cannot achieve what I'm trying to achieve. So my motivations are strong and they are deep. And I think that ultimately I will do whatever it takes to prevent diabetes and cognitive decline. And my plan is to live until I'm 120 with a good quality of life. Now, God may have a different path for me, but as long as it's in my hands, that's how long I'm going to live, and I'll do whatever it takes to get there. So that is really huge. And that is always in the forefront of my mind as to why I'm doing something and how do you make it a lifestyle. It's because it has to be your number one priority. Now, does that mean that I never cheat, or does that mean I never eat sugar? Does that mean I never, when I go to Italy, am I going to eat pasta? Yes, absolutely, I am. But you have to get your body into a state where it's functioning optimally. And then if you eat a little bit of sugar or you have a dessert or you go to Italy, it's not going to go back into where you are back into this state of emergency again. Right. So yeah, you might gain a pound or two when you come off of that, but your body is really resilient and you can bounce back very easily, and it doesn't really make any impact in the way that you feel. So you have to have goals and motivations. And then secondly, you have to do comprehensive testing, because comprehensive testing, and not just testing like if you do have low thyroid, just testing the TSH or even looking at the thyroid in a vacuum, but the body doesn't work in a vacuum. The body doesn't work in parts. And so, whenever you have an autoimmune disease or when you have thyroid or any kind of issue, you have to look at the body as a whole. So what are your adrenal glands doing? How are they adapting to stress and handling stress? What do your hormones look like? Do you have underlying infections? Do you have a high toxic load? Are you dealing with mold or heavy metals or environmental toxins? Do you have food sensitivities? So if you get off your like if you get your food sensitivities out of your diet and then you go load them back up, then you're going to be not in a good place. Right. So you have to understand what it is that you can cheat with and not cheat with. Right. What is your gut doing? Do you have leaky gut? Do you have, is your microbiome out of balance? So you've got to do really comprehensive testing to understand, okay, what is it that I need to do? What is the path forward? And so from there, treatment plans have to be customized, because this is where a lot of people really struggle, is because like they'll do 75 hard, they'll do a 30-day detox, they'll do paleo, they'll do keto, they'll do carnivore, they'll do these things for a short period of time, but it really isn't customized to exactly what it is that they need. And are there stages where maybe you're more rigid in the beginning and you do an elimination phase diet, or maybe you're stricter and you do some fasting, but then what does the long term look like? Like, what is it that we can do to sustain a lifestyle for the most part, like 80 to 90% of the time, so that you can maintain those results? The other thing that's important is diet is one component. Exercise is one component. We can absolutely exercise too much, and it really throws us off if we're exercising too much. We do need to get our bodies moving, but a lot of us, we're kind of at the edge of the stress that we can handle. And so adding in exercise 1 and 2 times a day, doing HIIT and all of this, high intensity stuff can really cause you to have more cortisol production and really stall all of your health efforts. So knowing and understanding how to exercise for where you are in your life at the moment is important. And yes, taking nutritional supplements to really fix underlying imbalances that food really can't do.
Mhm.
And knowing where to start with that and what are the priorities that you need to handle first to allow everything to move smoothly. And then thirdly, mindset. We talked a lot about that and understanding where your mindset is, what your thoughts are during the day, learning how to move your body into parasympathetic instead of staying in this sympathetic overdrive where your body can't heal. So it is about really looking at the whole person, handling all the different things that can really move the needle on someone's health. And then what do you do as a lifestyle? Because, like you did, if you do something that's not sustainable and you don't have a plan for easing yourself back into a healthy lifestyle, and most people do this, they go back to their old habits for the most part. Maybe they're not as bad as they were, but then it kind of throws you back into, almost like a tailspin, and the weight comes back. You don't have a weight issue, but most of the time the weight comes back plus a few pounds, and then they do it again. And so it's really about finding the underlying root cause, addressing the root cause, and then making sure that you have something that's sustainable that you can do long term for the most part. And knowing that, for me, I don't feel like I'm being deprived, right? I am gluten free and dairy free and soy free and corn free, all of those things that cause lots of inflammation and trigger autoimmunity. But I'm doing it as a choice because I feel better. And I know if I eat those things, I feel horrible. So for me, it's a choice. I don't feel deprived in any way whatsoever. And I know what I can kind of cheat with and what I can't cheat with. And I know how much I can do that before I start feeling a little off. But it's always about paying attention to where you're at and constantly looking at labs to make sure you're in the optimal ranges.
Wow. Yeah. So I mean, that was a lot of information. So
It was.
and I love it. And I want to go back to a few things. One thing that I do tell women, especially a lot, is taking care of yourself is the most important thing. Because like you said before, you cannot serve your patients. You cannot be the best mom. You cannot be the best wife if you are not the best version of yourself, which means making yourself a priority. If that means some sacrifice on sleep, like just getting up a little bit earlier to do that exercising, to meditate, to read, to journal, whatever it is, those are the sacrifices that you are going to have to make. Because I think as a mother, we put so much emphasis on our children that we forget to take care of ourselves. And it's not
Yeah.
that our kids are not the most important thing in our lives, but in all reality, I mean, you have to take care of yourself first. So if you got anything out of all of this, I would say you need to take care of yourself and make yourself a
Yeah.
priority and not feel guilty about it. It is not selfish. It is actually selfless because you can give back to your family, to your clients, to the world in a much, much better way. And I feel like I have kind of been I've been in like a little lull, like I can't get my weight down to where I want. And I get very frustrated. So I'm like, well, whatever. But I know that my body's likely lacking in something. But I think so many women are just, we don't know where to go. I don't want to just go to a doctor and say, hey, run labs, because I don't really
Yep.
trust that particular doctor, or not
Yeah.
say, or maybe he doesn't know what to look for. I don't know. I don't know. So I think for me and many others, what would something like this look like if I went to you? Because I would say overall I'm a very healthy person, but I know I am not optimizing the
Yeah.
best that I can, you know? Because when I was doing that 75 hard, I felt so good. I looked so good, but it was difficult for me. So if this was something that I wanted to kind of talk to you more about, what would that journey look like for me with you? Do you do one-on-one? Can you do it from, I'm obviously in Nebraska, you're in Texas. What would that look like?
Yeah. So for the first of all, you really want to look for a functional medicine practitioner. Okay, so like you don't want to go if that's what you're looking for is like to optimize your health. You don't really go to a disease drug therapy model doctor. Now they have their time and place, but the biggest frustration is going to a traditional doctor that doesn't have training in functional medicine and expecting him or her to really evaluate you in an optimal way. And that's just not the way the system is set up. So you want to find more of a functional medicine practitioner that will run the labs and analyze it appropriately to evaluate for optimal health, not just looking for a disease state.
Mhm.
Okay. And you have to interview and check and voice what it is that you're expecting. And then, make sure that it's going to be a good fit one way or the other when you're searching for a doctor. You don't just go in and assume that this person is going to give you what you're wanting. So you have to go through kind of like an interview process.
Yeah.
Now, to work the way that we take patients is all patients come through a master class. So I do a master class in Facebook pretty much once a month. And I want to make sure that the patients that are kind of coming through my practice, that we're on the same page, that they know what I'm about and they have the basic knowledge of how the body's working and what we're looking for and what the goals are and all of that. So I want to give as much information away as possible.
Mhm.
And usually in those master classes, I will allow people to take advantage of testing, right? So comprehensive testing so that we can evaluate them like, okay, what is going on? What are the underlying imbalances? Is this something that we can help you with? What are your goals? And if that is a match, then we talk about moving forward and working together. And for me, we are all virtual. And so we can pretty much work with anybody at any time, in any place. So everything is virtual. And that's been a blessing for us because we've been able to bring functional medicine to people that don't have that option or live in a small town or really don't understand what functional medicine is. So it's been a great blessing to go virtual.
Did COVID really change that trajectory for you guys?
Yeah, it
And of
did.
course, it to happen sooner and more.
Yeah. So we were in Colorado and, we were in the traditional brick and mortar, and I was only able to see people like in the Denver area. Colorado is interesting because Denver's kind of the hub. So you kind of draw from the whole state, and people used to drive 4 hours to see us for 30 minutes. And so, it was very cumbersome and it was hard to get to and hard to access. But once COVID hit, we were like, well, our patients still need us. Like we can't stop seeing patients and maybe they can't drive in and maybe they can't come in here and people are scared and whatever. So we're going to switch to virtual. And it was a little clunky at first, but technology has really moved forward exponentially faster because of that. And so then that allowed us to move to Texas, start a ranch and a regenerative farm, and really expand our reach for so many more patients.
That's amazing. That is amazing. I mean, every problem comes with an
Uh-huh.
opportunity though, too. You know what I mean? So like, I know COVID was obviously terrible. Nobody would want to go back and relive it, but it has changed the trajectory in a good way for so many businesses to be able to reach more people across the nation rather than just in your own little town or your state. Functional medicine, I'm not too familiar with. So a little bit about like my problem that I've been kind of experiencing is a lot of back pain. I struggled with back
Hmm.
problems since I was 7. Don't a little bit of scoliosis, things like that. But like I feel like my back I have a lot of inflammation. So I feel
Hmm.
like I refuse to go be put on meds or tell me that I need surgery and whatever else. I'm not doing that because I truly believe it has something to do with the foods that I'm eating. I don't really drink, but the foods that I'm eating that is causing some sort of inflammation and that a pinched nerve. I mean, to the point where like my foot constantly is kind of tingling, almost like numb, and it's
Hmm.
been going on for about 6, 7 months. I did do some shock treatment, which was amazing, so I can live with what I feel and how I am today. But I know that I could feel so much better. You know what I mean? So like I have not, I'm willing to do what I need to, if a doctor tells me that I do, but I want to know that I can trust that doctor and I don't want to be just put on meds. I do not. Like if there's
Yeah.
supplements, that's fine. If it's Diet, I can do it. If somebody tells me, Shae, this is what we need to do, this is what you need to focus on, done. I can do it. But I need to trust you. I'm not going to go in.
Yep.
I don't want you to just mask it with pills. Not what I want. I want to know what's going on. Why is this happening? What's causing this inflammation that I believe is happening? And what do I do about it? You know what I mean? So
Yep.
that's
Exactly. I think the world is changing, and I think it's becoming more and more apparent that, the general well, I don't even know yet if it's the general population, but a large majority of us really are starting to look at, okay, I don't want just another pill, and I want to really find somebody that's going to help me get to the root cause. And you've got it. Like, okay, so you have inflammation, and most back pain, yes, you can have a pinched nerve, but it's usually the pinching of the nerve. You have to look for, like when you talk about back pain, it's structural, physical, or chemical. Okay. No, not sorry. Physical and structural are the same thing. It's emotional, structural, or chemical. So your structural, see a chiropractor, make sure there's nothing major going on. You have a misalignment or whatever. But then you have to get down to the chemical part. Is it inflammatory? And where is the inflammation coming from? Is it that you have toxins in the body that you're not able to detox and you're not able to clear out? Is it that you have, food sensitivities that are causing the inflammation? Like, what is the source of the inflammation? No longer is it about just take an anti-inflammatory, take an NSAID, even if you did turmeric, yes, it's more natural, it's an anti-inflammatory, but it's still not getting down to the cause of where the inflammation is coming from. Right. And then you also want to address the emotional aspects of things, because it really truly does have an impact on the way that your body expresses physical ailments. And so looking at those three things is going to be the best way to handle any major physical issue.
right. Okay. And I believe all of that. I just don't think we have anybody in our area. So we'll have to chat about all that.
Okay, we'll chat. Um,
But so how has this journey for you and your health journey and as you're in your profession, how have your kids been with you throughout this whole thing? You know what I mean? Because it sounds easy. Oh, 20 years, I've worked so hard, I know what I'm eating, I know what my body can and cannot do. But that's also like a challenge and a journey itself on top of kids, because if they're in activities or sports, it is tough to continue to eat clean and eat good, because when you're constantly busy, well, let's just swing through real quick and then grab something to eat, which is terrible for you. But what
yeah.
did that life journey look like with you and two boys?
So, just so we're all clear, this journey is a journey. And, once you fix your health, it doesn't just stay there, right? Like you have to constantly be looking to optimize where you're at and handling the different stages in life that you're in, right? I just turned 48. I can't even believe that.
Look
But
fantastic.
obviously, in perimenopause and hormones are starting to shift, and I'm starting to move into a different phase of life. So, what does that look like, right? Like, does my exercise need to change? How are my hormones changing? Like, so constantly evolving where you're at with your health. So it's not always easy. I have ups and downs as well, but it's about knowing that you're on this journey and continuing to get through the downs or those valleys so that you can actually enjoy the peaks. And I think most people quit in the valleys and they're just around the corner from having that success. That goes with business too. So, like when you're in those valleys, going through the valley is what actually creates the success. And so it's the exact same thing with your health. And if we expect it just to go on an upward trajectory, you're going to be disappointed in both aspects. Okay. So, for me, because my health is my number one priority, that means with kids, that is a lifestyle. I raised my kids eating well. And yeah, sometimes I was the mean mom, and I'm always the weird mom, and we're always the weird family. And we don't go out to eat with, like, my kids play baseball. And we didn't really go out to eat with the team whenever they went out after a game or something like that, because it was junk. Like they went to terrible places that we couldn't even really eat or want to eat anything on the menu. Sometimes we would be like, okay, we are just going to go hang out. And then afterwards, we're going to go eat whatever it is that we need to eat. Like, I don't know if you know, but in baseball, when they're playing competitive club baseball, you're literally at tournaments all day long. So, yeah, I had to have some prepping. I had to bring an ice chest. I brought lunch. I brought snacks. I brought all the things so that the kids didn't feel left out. We had stuff to eat. We didn't have to grab something. When they had snacks in the dugout, all the parents knew that my kids did not eat that. And so I just made sure to bring their own things so that they didn't feel left out. My kids have been gluten free. And so when they go to birthday parties, I would bring them a cupcake so that they could still eat like everybody else was eating and enjoy the treat. But we have always been the weird family, and that's just the way it is. And they kind of joke and laugh, and Cannon's like, I guess we're always going to be the weird ones. We don't take meds. We eat well, we all exercise, and they are top performing athletes, and their brain is functioning really well, and they're well-rounded, adjusted kids. And when you teach them that it isn't about weight and it isn't about the thing that it's about is about health, and health is our priority, and we don't put junk in our body, because when you put junk in, you get junk out. And so it was about them understanding and learning. And my youngest son had some issues when he was younger. He was sensitive to eggs, and it took me a while to figure that out. And he would have major stomach aches, and I just wasn't putting it all together. Like when he would eat mayonnaise mayonnaise, he would have a major stomach ache. And I'm like, this is so, like, how did I not know that? I was giving him mayonnaise and it had eggs in it. But because they've had those issues and I helped them relate it to the foods that they were eating, it was really easy for them to say, no, I don't want to eat those things. And so my older son also, when he would eat gluten, 48 hours later, he would have a migraine almost to the minute. And so when you can associate that, and then we say, okay, you have a headache because you chose to eat gluten. I'm not giving you Tylenol, but you go to your room, we'll put a cool rag over your head, we'll turn off the lights, and we'll make it as easy as possible to get through this, but we're not rescuing you. I know that might be mean, but he learned. And so then he's like, okay, I'm not going to eat gluten because I don't want to have that headache again. And they can associate it with how their body is feeling.
Yeah.
But the other thing I think is really important as an entrepreneur and as a mom, it's knowing when to say no. It's knowing when it's choosing your priorities. Like, am I at every PTA meeting? No, I'm not at any. Do I volunteer at the school? Not really, but I'll give them money because my time is more valuable to me right now. And that's that my time is the most valuable thing. So do they need a donation? I will be happy to do that. If I have to volunteer once a year, I will be happy to do that too. I will do that, but I'm not at every school function. And my kids know that because this is a super high priority. I love them, but me going to a PTA meeting doesn't really show them that I love them. But being at their sports, yes, I'm at most of their sports games. Not all of them, but most of them. And I think it's really important as an entrepreneur when your health is your high priority, your business is a priority, and your children and family are a priority. What is it that you say no to, and where are you spending your time? Because I see patients that are trying to do it all and their business suffers. They're not showing up with energy. They are not completely present with their family. Their relationship with their husband isn't great. So it's like, pick your priorities, and your health has to be up there in order to allow you to be successful in a couple of things.
Yeah. I was talking to my husband not too long ago because a couple of my friends, she was saying how she had this mom guilt because she got busy with work and she forgot to send, it was supposed to be dress up day at her kid's preschool or school or something like that. And she's like, I feel so guilty. He's the most important thing in my life. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I forgot to send my daughter to in a Halloween costume for Halloween and she's still thriving. Like, we're good. Like, move past that. We don't need to feel this mom guilt. Like, it's not,
Yeah.
people put so much emphasis on being a amazing mom and having that mom guilt. Let that shit go. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
you make it to most of your kids' activities and your games. You can't feel guilty for missing those few. Now, if you missed it because you're sitting at home and you don't feel like you don't want to do anything, that's a little bit different. But if it's
Yeah.
because you are taking care of yourself and you're taking care of your business and you're taking care of your family, you cannot feel guilty. You cannot feel guilty. So set that whole mom guilt aside. I don't like that whole fab or whatever it is. I even said to my husband the other day, I was like, I don't know if I've really ever felt like true mom guilt. Like, because I know what I'm doing is for the best
Yeah.
for my family and my kids, and I'm there. I coach them. I do all of those things. I don't do the PTE meetings. They're not there. That's not quality time. But yeah, I'll donate. I'll do that kind of thing. But the whole mom guilt thing, it drives me crazy. It
Well, you
really
know what's interesting is that I never felt mom guilt until some other mom at the school was like, "Oh, do you need me to take your kid home? Because I know you're working." I'm like, "Excuse me." She probably wasn't intending it, and she
right.
probably wasn't intentionally doing that to me, but I'm like, "Oh, am I the mom that doesn't ever pick up their kid?" So
That's me too. I know.
I don't
Something
know.
like
My
that. I'd be like,
husband, yeah, my husband always wanted that job. And he's like, there's something about it that makes me feel good to take our kids to school and pick them up. I'm like, oh, I don't have that desire. So if you have that desire, then you do that. And that's amazing. But anyway, it was like I never was guilty until she made an inference, and she probably wasn't even doing it on purpose. And I'm like, oh, should I feel guilty? My
yeah.
husband is like, okay, first of all, you are crazy. So just cut that out.
Right. See, my mind would have been like, oh, you're so sweet. Yes, that'd be great. Like, oh, I'm so glad you noticed. I'm so busy. Yes, that'd be fantastic. No, I'm always dropping my kids off, and then usually between my husband and I, we're picking it up. But he's really stepped up with me being in real estate, and he is too. But he has really stepped up to help take on a lot of those roles, which has been a game changer.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
well, I don't want to take up too much more of your time, but if somebody is interested in getting in touch with you and kind of going through this journey with you, or you helping them through their own journey, how can they get a hold of you, or what would you recommend the next step be?
Yeah. So the easiest way is to go to Facebook and go to the group Happy, Healthy, and Lean. We have about 70,000 ladies in there, and it is an amazing community. And I do master classes every month. It's thyroid, autoimmunity, weight loss, brain fog, and cognitive decline. I do on hormones. I do all kinds of master classes to give you as much education as possible. Plus, you're in a community of ladies, and they are, well, I don't allow any negative people in there.
Right. Nope,
So those
they're
get
out.
kicked out. So it's a really great community of really supportive women who have been with me for decades, and then some who are just starting this journey, and then everywhere in between. So that's really where you start on this journey, is Happy, Healthy, and Lean in Facebook.
That's amazing. That is amazing. And then can they work one-on-one with you, or what does that look like if they get into that Facebook page and go to your masterminds? And I mean, I'm sure
Yeah.
that's more there,
So
but
yeah, then they would do testing, and then we would evaluate them. We would have a one-on-one visit to really go through their case and see if it's a good fit moving forward. And then we would work with them. Me and my team would work with them on a one-on-one basis.
well, that's amazing. Well, thank you so, so, so much, Dr. Heather Stone. I truly appreciate your time. You're obviously a very busy woman. So I will definitely be letting you go, but thank you for sharing your knowledge, your expertise, and then your, tips of advice that you've shared with us throughout the
Yeah, thank you
hour
for
or
having
so.
me.
Yes,
Yeah,
thank
thanks for having
you.
me.
All righty. And that wraps up another inspiring episode of the Real Moms Podcast. A huge thank you to our incredible guests for sharing their story and insights today. If you found value in today's conversation, don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss an episode. And hey, sharing is caring, right? Share this podcast with your fellow mompreneurs, friends, and anyone who you feel could use a dose of inspiration. Share it on your social media as well. But most importantly, if you found this episode helpful, please, please, please leave me a 5-star review. This helps get our information out to those who have never heard or seen us before. Are you feeling inspired and you're sure that you could add some value to the podcast? Shoot me a message and let's talk. We love hearing from you. So connect with us on social media. Tag me at Shae J Spitz. That's ShaeJSpitz. And share your thoughts and takeaways, or even suggest topics you'd like to have us explore more in the future episodes. Remember, you're not alone on this journey. Your resilience is your strength, and your pursuit of abundant living is truly remarkable. As always, keep thriving, keep growing, and keep embracing the beautiful chaos of being a mompreneur. Until next time, take care, stay real, and keep living abundantly.